Great. So thank you. Welcome to MODL's Local Climate Change Action Plan Public Engagement Session. The purpose of today's virtual meeting is to engage with our community members and to get your feedback on the draft Local Climate Change Action Plan. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kmaq territory, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. As we kick off our event, I'd like to first start by going around and introducing ourselves. Please state your name. If you have a role with the municipality or if you're a member of the public, let us know. And if you want to share which community you're in, that would be great. So I'm going to go one by one. I have a list of attendees. I think there's a couple people just here by email. So just when I call your name, feel free to unmute and we'll give you a few seconds to catch up. And I'll start with Abby.
Great. Hi, everyone. I am Abby. I am working as a sustainability planner with the municipality of District of Lunenburg. And I'm very happy to see you all joining in.
Perfect. And I didn't neglect to introduce myself. I'm Sarah Karski. I'm the manager of corporate services and communications at MODL. My apologies. On to Byung-Jun.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Byung-Jun Kang. I'm the municipal planner with the District of Lunenburg, primarily dealing with all the housing application that is floating in our municipality. So yes, happy to be here.
Thank you. Camelia.
Hi, I'm Camelia Freiberg, and I live in Baker Settlement, but I'm also very involved in Blockhouse community of late, as I'm starting up a new venture there called Chicory Blue General Store.
Wonderful. Mayor Bolivar-Getson. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Hi there, Carolyn Bolivar-Getson, Mayor for the municipality of the District of Lunenburg, and also a member of the Sustainability Committee. And I look forward to hearing your ideas tonight.
Great. Deputy Mayor Moore.
Hi, Deputy Mayor Moore. I am the chairperson for the Sustainability Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Vino.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chastity Vino, councillor with District of Lunenburg for District 10, which is the communities that surround the town of Lunenburg. So great to see so many members of the public here with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, Ed, are you on mute? That's okay. We'll move on. How about you, George? Would you like to say hi?
George Barani. I'm resident of Hebbs Cross, and I'm interested in all things environmental.
Wonderful. Mr. Merrill.
Hi, I'm Jeff Merrill, the Director of Planning and Development Services for the District of Lunenburg.
Great, thank you. Jim?
Hi, Jim Rosby, Indian Point with Linda Weiser here, private citizen.
Excellent, a double whammy. Councillor DeLong.
Hi, my name is Casey. I am a municipal representative representing District 8, and I'm also proud to be on the Sustainability Committee.
Thank you. Stephen.
Hi, everyone. Steve McIsaac, engineer, live in Cockerell Mills, but also do some engineering consulting work in and around this county.
Great, thank you. Meryl. I think you might be on mute, Meryl. Do you want to try again?
Sure. Hi, I'm Meryl Huback. I live in Garden Lots, which is just outside of Lunenburg. I'm involved in several committees with the Council of Canadians and 350.org and CPONs. I've been working in environmental issues for a while, and I'm very happy to be here and learn what the MODL is doing.
Great, thanks for joining us. Michael. Michael, do we still have you?
He's on
Okay.
mute.
All right, we'll move on. Councillor Greek.
Sorry.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no,
It's
go-
okay.
you go ahead.
I forgot. I've been muted. My apologies. I've been an itinerant publisher for some 50 years, and my wife and I recently moved to Rose Bay, and we love it, and we're interested in where we live.
Great, thanks for joining. Councillor Greek.
I'm Michelle. I'm a municipal councillor for District 7 and the municipality, and I live in Bar's Corner.
Suzanne.
Suzanne Jodry, member of the public living in Branch LaHave.
And Trevor.
Hello. Yeah, I'm a member of the public. We're currently living in Brampton, Ontario, but we're intending to move to Italy Cross in the not too distant future. So really interested in the exciting work that's happening there.
Awesome. And Wendy.
Hello, I'm Wendy Oikel. I'm the municipal councillor for District 3, and I live within my district in Wildville, and I'm just here to listen.
Perfect. If I missed anyone or you didn't have a chance to get off mute, now's your chance. Okay, moving on. So a few housekeeping items before I throw it over to Abby. The event is recorded, as you know, and it will be published on our engage.modl.ca project platform. The recording, we're hoping, will be helpful to people who couldn't attend today or weren't able to attend yesterday. So feel free to share it far and wide on your social media channels if you'd like to help your community members and friends and family get involved. You're welcome to keep your camera on or off. It's up to you. We do ask that you keep your microphone off as Abby's presenting, just to limit noise and distractions for the primary part of the presentation. But then once the presentation's over, we're going to open up the floor and then you can turn your mics on to add your comments or ask questions. We had a really robust discussion yesterday. It was really exciting to see all the different things and all the different facets of climate change that people were interested in talking about. So we'll hope for the same thing tonight. His presentation will be about 15 minutes and then we'll open that floor for the Q&A. And you can also use the chat feature during the presentation if you want to drop some ideas or questions right in there as you think of them, because I know sometimes if we try to remember till later, that can be a bit challenging. So thanks for joining us, and I'm going to throw it over to Abby.
Yep. All right. Without any further ado, I can begin with my presentation. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can, or I can.
Awesome. I hope everybody can. Okay, so before I begin my presentation, I just want to give a heads up that although I try to keep a good pace, but just in case if I am going too fast and you are not being able to follow up, just please feel free to turn on your mic and let me know, and I will slow down. Okay, so let's begin. So the contents that we are going to go over is we'll begin with climate emergency first, and to understand why this is important. And then we will move on to what is happening towards climate action at different jurisdictional level, at global level, national level, provincial level, and at municipal level. And then we'll speak a little bit about the Partners for Climate Protection Program and what is that program. And then we will move on to where are we today in terms of our greenhouse gases emissions inventory. And then we'll speak about where we are going from here, which will entail our emissions reduction target, and then how we will get there. This is where the role of our local climate change action plan comes in. And then we'll speak about the draft plans, identified main categories, and proposed action items. And then I will speak a little bit about the plan's overall timeline, and then we'll open the floor for discussions. So climate emergency, we all know with the increased levels of greenhouse gases from the burning of fossil fuels has led to global warming and the rapid climate change. as can be seen on the graph on the right. Since our baseline post-industrial era since 1980s, the rate at which the global average surface temperature is rising has doubled, and it has already surpassed to 1 degree Celsius. And it is expected that if we continue with our business as usual scenario, it will surpass 1.5 degrees Celsius within next 20 years. So, and also the thing is the way the global temperature is on an average, it has different impacts on different regions. So different region will be warming at different rates. Similarly, Canada is getting warmer twice as fast as the rest of the world, and it has already witnessed 1.7 degree rise in their average mean temperature. And while up northern territories up in the north is getting 3 times as faster as the rest of the world, and it has already witnessed 2.3 degrees Celsius rise in their average temperatures. And the future of climate of the municipality is also expected to be getting warmer and will be experiencing more frequent life-threatening extreme weather events, which could include inland coastal floodings, stronger hurricanes, frequent rainfalls, etc. So now that we know we are in the climate emergency, what is happening towards climate action at global level? So many nations today have signed Paris Agreement that was signed back in 2015 to act upon climate change and how they can reduce the impacts of climate change, but at the same time prepare themselves for the changing climate. Today, more than 190 nations have already joined the agreement, including Canada. And the nations around the globe have committed to reduce their global emissions, respective regions, so that they could limit the global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. And every 5 years, each country is expected to submit their national climate action plan to reflect upon how they are going to achieve their set targets. And it is it is known as the nationally determined contributions, but it's in simple language, it is just their national climate action plans. What is happening towards climate action at national level, which is Canada? So in 2019, Canada declared a national climate emergency, and to support its commitment to meet the emission reduction targets that it had set in their Paris Agreement. And Canada had set the target back in 2015, which was to reduce their emission levels by 30% below 2005 levels by 2030. And since each country is required to update their targets after 5 years, so recently in 2021, Canada too has revised their targets and updated to reduce it to 40 to 45% emission levels below 2005 levels by 2030 and become net zero by 2050. And this is also Canada's first emissions reduction target that is enshrined in law under the new Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act, and which already received royal assent in last year in June. So what it means is, in case the government officials, the federal officials working towards um, aggressively working towards achieving these targets, fail to achieve these targets, they will be held accountable and they will have to um, give reasons why they fail to achieve those targets. In 2020, National Climate Action Plan, A Healthy Environment and a Healthy Economy was released by Canada, which outlines how they will be achieving these reduction targets. So now that we know what is happening at global and national level, now comes down to what is happening at provincial level in Nova Scotia. So in Nova Scotia also has set the reduction target of 53% below 2005 levels by 2030 and to achieve net zero emission levels by 2050. Last year, Canada only recently in November of 2021 passed Environmental Goals and Climate Change Reduction Act, which entails 28 goals and targets, which some of them includes to have their electricity in the province. 80% of the electricity will be coming from renewable energy sources by 2030. To also phase out all the coal-fired energy generations in the province. To conserve at least 20% of the total land and water mass in the province by 2030. And to also develop and implement a zero emission vehicle mandate, which will require all the auto dealers in the province to sell at least 30% of their vehicles annually, zero emission vehicles, or like electric vehicles or fuel cell electric vehicles. What it means is if they fail to sell minimum 30% of their vehicles annually, they will be penalized. And government will also create a strategic plan by the end of this year, which will be known as Climate Change Plan for Clean Growth, which will entail how they are going to achieve these set targets that have been published in this act. Moving on to municipal level, today across Canada, more than 500 municipalities have declared climate emergency. MODL 2 in 2019, in October 2019, declared climate emergency. And as part of its declaration, and they committed to act on climate change by joining the Partners for Climate Protection Program. So what this program is, it is in short known as PCP program. It is administered by FCM, which is Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and jointly with the ICLEI. It is International Governments of working towards climate change and mitigation. And they provide a 5 milestone framework that can help municipalities to reduce their greenhouse gases and to also adapt their municipalities for the changing climate. And as can be seen in the map on the right, today more than 400 municipalities have already joined this program. So what are the 5 milestones of this PCP program? The milestone 1 is where we create our baseline emissions inventory, which is like we draw a baseline that what our at present greenhouse gases emission levels are within our municipality. And then we move on to milestone 2, which is we set a reduction target. So now that we know what our baseline emission levels are, how are we, what percentage are we going to reduce those emission levels and by what year? Then the milestone 3 is where we develop a plan that how we are going to achieve that reduction target. And then milestone 4 is where we implement that plan. And milestone 5 is we monitor the progress once the plan's implementation begins. So where are we today? Today, we have already completed our baseline emissions inventory, which is like we have already achieved our milestone 1. So we created a baseline emissions back in 2019. And as it can be seen in the graph here, the baseline emissions were divided into 4 sectors for the community stream, the residential, community vehicles, commercial, institutional, and industrial buildings, and community waste. The residential building accounts for half of the emissions that come from the community, which is 50%, and it is approx 160,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And it is followed by the second most sector, which is transportation. So the community vehicles, which primarily comes from gasoline and diesel. And this inventory not only includes all the vehicles that are owned by the residents, but also all the vehicles that are on road within the municipal boundaries. And the third category, which is commercial, institutional, industrial building, accounts for 15% of our emissions inventory, which includes all the offices, schools, colleges, industries, factories, malls, etc. Basically everything that is non-residential. And it is followed by the community waste, which accounts for 5% of our emissions inventory. If we look at these emissions level by the sources of their energy, the topmost is the electricity itself, which accounts for 45% of our total emissions. And that is primarily because our electricity majorly comes from Nova Scotia Power, and which burns coal to produce their electricity. And the electricity is followed by gasoline, which is the because of our cars, which accounts for second most sector, highest sector in terms of our emissions. And it is followed by fuel oil, diesel, waste, propane, and wood. So now that we know what our baseline emissions are, now we are required to set an emissions reduction target as to by what percentage we will be reducing these emission levels. So there are 2 ways how we set a target. One is top to bottom approach, where we set our target first, and then we identify action items accordingly that can help us to achieve the target. The second approach is what we are using as a municipality is bottom up approach, what we do is we analyze the action items first, and we assess what their potential is, how much emissions can be reduced from those action items, and then we set a target. So we are using the bottom-up target setting approach. So how we will get there? So we are developing a local climate change action plan, which is going to be a 10-year plan that will help us to that will help MODL to become a low carbon community, and in the long term become a sustainable, climate resilient, and net zero community. And once the plan is approved, it will have outlined a set of strategies, actions, and targets that will guide the municipality and the communities to work together to reduce not only their greenhouse gases emissions, but at the same time also increase their resilience and adapt to the changing climate. So now moving on to what the draft plan's 9 main categories and 23 proposed action items are. This is where the MODL and the Sustainability Committee has been working over the past year, and we'll move on one by one on each category. The category 1 is energy efficient built environment, which is the accounts for about 50%, actually not only 50, because it also takes into account the commercial side. So it is 50 plus 15%. So 65% of our emission comes from this category 1 itself. And the first action item identified in this category is the Clean Energy Financing Program expansion and promotion. So if you all don't know or are not familiar with, this is a retrofitting program that is being run by municipality to help community members and residents to do higher energy efficiency upgrades to their homes and with high efficiency equipment and building envelope. The second action item identified is to adopt higher green building standards, which what it means is to achieve or adopt higher minimum energy efficiency standards for the new constructions, be it new houses or new commercial buildings. For the third action item is the commercial energy efficiency retrofits. So what we intend to do is to promote already existing Efficiency Nova Scotia's commercial retrofit programs, which includes retrofitting programs for small businesses, and also they provide various options that the commercial sector can use to understand what their emission levels are and how or what kinds of retrofits they can do to their properties. Sustainable and low carbon transportation. In this, the action items that have been identified, the first one is to have an adequate electric vehicle charging infrastructure throughout our municipality to install more EV public charging stations. And the second action item is to promote and support EV transition to help residents to create more awareness about how driving an EV is like and how they can transition to EVs. The third is to adopt anti-idling policy for the municipality. The fourth action item is to for the car share and bike share programs, in which we will conduct feasibility studies to understand what car share and bike share programs we can adopt and have in our municipality. And the last action item identified in this category is public transit to expand MODL's public transit services. Third category is to waste reduction, recycling, and composting. And this the first action item is to create educational programs that can help the residents and community members to manage their waste well, and so that we will be able to achieve higher landfill waste diversion rates. And the second action item is to launch Join In, Bring Your Own program, which can help us to reduce single-use plastics. So category 4 is land use for energy conservation and sustainable development. What it means to create and develop land use bylaws and zoning for mixed use to support sustainable development that not only reduces sprawl and increases density, but at the same time also reduces our energy consumption and environmental impact of our automobile usage, and as well as enhances public health and accessibility to the businesses and services. So category 5 is natural environment conservation. The action items that have been identified in this category is to first to launch a tree planting program region-wide that can help us to not only increase our green space, forest cover, but at the same time, it will help us to create and increase carbon sequestration or absorption to improve our air quality, improve water retention, and for many other benefits. Second action item is to land conservation, to purchase and or accept land donations that can help us to conserve and protect biodiversity and our natural environment. The sixth and very important category is to have community engagement. Community engagement plays a vital role in not only the plan development aspect, but also the plan implementation side. The action items that have been identified in this category is the first one is to have community pledges. So to initiate community pledges that can enable the community members to pledge at their individual levels to reduce emissions. Second is to create and promote youth engagement by partnering with local institutions that can help us to act upon climate change. Third action item is to create a region-wide climate working group to develop region-wide either volunteer engagement programs and also a climate working group that can help us to drive these environmental outcomes and to enable communities to become more resilient to the changing climate. And the last one action item identified is to create and launch MODL Resilience and Environmental Champion Award that can help us to award the award to honor the individual businesses and community groups for their contribution towards climate action. The seventh category is to have renewable energy generation projects to invest in a community solar garden, and that will help us to access clean energy and also will bring lots of benefits to our local economy by creating more green jobs and will further support our community members and residents who are unable to install rooftop solar panels. The eighth category is food security. The action items that have been identified in this category is to create a vegetable garden. Community-owned vegetable gardens can help us to help community members who are vulnerable and at the same time underrepresented. And the second is to create food security programs that can help us to support our farmers and to increase our local food production. The last category is to create emergency preparedness and response. The first action item is to have install more dry hydrants that can help us to ensure adequate water resources are available during fire and other related emergencies. And the second action item is to create educational programs so that can help us to create awareness amongst our community members, how they can prepare for these extreme weather events and adapt to this changing climate. Before I end my presentation, this is an overview of the plan's timeline, where it began from and where do we stand at today and what will be the next steps. In fall of 2019 is when MODL declared climate emergency. In the summer of 2020, we completed our 2019 baseline greenhouse gases emissions inventory. In the winter of 2021, we formed sustainability committee that could help to guide the plan development. In last year's fall 2021, we identified these 9 main categories and 23 possible future action items. In the winter of 2022, which is at this time, we are conducting community as well as stakeholder engagements on these draft plan. As for next steps, in spring of 2022, once the engagement concludes by the end of this month, we will incorporate those results into our analysis and we will prioritize and finalize these action items. And then we will set overall reduction target as well as targets for individual action item. And then we will present the draft plan to municipal council. In the summer of 2022, once the plan gets approval, that is when the implementation will begin. So that was the whole presentation. And now, as we open up the floor for discussions, I would just want to give a heads up that if you have not already filled out our community engagement survey, please do that. And also please share with your networks, friends, families to do that survey if they haven't done already. The deadline to complete this survey is February 28th, 2022. And this feedback will help us in terms of understanding what the public support is towards these action items and will help in the plan development process. And now I think I can open the floor for discussion.
So if you'd like to use the hand up tool, if you know how to use it, there's just a little button at the top. It has an emoji of a smiley face and a little hand. If you click on it and click the raise hand underneath it, it'll raise it, and then you can click it again to put your hand down. But I can also put it down for you if you're struggling with that. George, got you first and then you, Michael.
Okay, thank you. That was an excellent presentation. I would just like to thank you for walking us through that really thoroughly. Just want to make a couple of points. One of them is around land use, because the Canadian targets are 30% and not 20%. So as you proceed on that, maybe looking at a municipal target that actually aims for the international commitments we made as a country, as opposed to 20% that the province has made. And part of that is how to protect our forests that are already some of the older forests and prevent some of those from being clear cut, which is happening across the province. And that may reduce the amount of tree planting we have to do. And those forests are storing carbon. The other is as one proceeds, the idea of enshrining the idea to hire locally and to use local builders for some of the projects, especially the larger ones. So the retrofitting, solar garden. And part of that is to prevent wealth extraction from communities and move towards some kind of wealth creation. And so as best we can to try to find local talent, whether in local businesses or local nonprofits that can do some of that work. Anyway, that's all for now.
Thank you. Did you have any comments you wanted to add to that, Abby?
I would just say, yeah, thank you, George. That's wonderful comments, and that is what our intentions are also in those alignments. That as we work on these action items, our intention is to not only support our environmental goals and targets, but at the same time support local economy by creating more green jobs and having those social impact as well.
Okay, over to you, Michael.
I just had a couple of questions. The first is that, is there a parallel climate adaptation strategy? Because obviously that's a bit more, well, it's not more, but you have to do both, because I lived at La Havre for 25 years in the ocean. She's coming up. So is there a parallel climate adaptation strategy?
Yep. Thank you, Michael, for bringing that up. Yes, certainly. As for this plan, our category 9 is more towards educational aspect to prepare communities how they can adapt to changing climate and be prepared for these emergency events. And simultaneously, we are also a municipality is working forward with MODL 2040, which is a 20-year overall municipal planning strategy in which the adaptability components are included as well. For example, how we can protect our community members from increasing coastal and inland flooding, and all those elements are incorporated in that plan. And that plan is also, interestingly, going parallel to this plan. So it is in the same timeline. It is in a preliminary stages, and a lot of engagements are already happening on that plan as well. So yeah, it is happening. That answers.
So is there must be a link somewhere to the plan?
Yep, same on the same website, engage.modl.
Okay, great.
So all the projects are We try to keep everything as up to date as possible on all of our websites. So if you want to follow up on either on local climate change action plan, MODL 2040, and all the planning developments and other developments that are happening, we keep them posted on our websites. So you can just follow up on the engage.modl website.
Thank you. If I could ask my second question, it was related to the issue of intensity, which is a big issue, of course, everywhere. But of course, Lunenburg County is the opposite of intense. It's you have people coming to be unintensive, so it kind of is the opposite of the economic strategy for at least Lunenburg, not just Lunenburg County, but the whole area. So I presume that has to be looked at, but it brings the question forward as to how closely is your strategy with Bridgewater and Lunenburg and all the rest of it, because you can't really do intensification unless they're part of the plan. So my question is, how close is it? Is everybody running on the same plan or coming close to it? Or how would you work on an issue like intensity when you really have to work in tandem?
Yeah, I think that is more of a planning question. Like, is it more about like densification side when you say intensity?
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is that there's no point looking at an intensification strategy in Rose Bay. If you're going to have an intensity strategy, you want to build it around, the town of Lunenburg or Bridgewater. So you can take advantage of public services and you can do all the things that people recommend when you're building out small communities and avoiding sprawl. So how closely are the plans between the different agencies, or I'm not sure. I don't know that much about it, but I don't doubt, having done a lot of community development in my life in Northern Ontario for many, many years, there's always fiefdoms and whatnot. And what I don't know is whether you're working absolutely in tandem with these other communities on such an important strategy as intensification.
Yeah, I see our director's hand is up. Do you want to jump on this one, Jeff?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, so they are separate plans because they are separate units, but we are trying to work with the other units. We just met this week with the Bridgewater planning staff, and we're working on, so the other plan is the MODL 2040. So we're looking at housing. We had a report done last summer, or actually this time last year, on our rural typologies to kind of, and we've got a team of housing students working on drafting some housing policy for us. So looking at density, right, and looking at like where do we put people? Like if people come, like where does it make sense? So off the top of my head, like looking at Osprey Village, we've got central services, both sewer and water. So it's how do we put as many people in there as possible? And then looking at the other areas and how do we change the traditional settlement pattern from something that might be sprawl to how do we encourage kind of nodes in the municipality, whether that's like Riverport or Petite Riviere, La Have area, or say New Germany they have a sewer system. They don't have central water, but they have central sewer. So how do we encourage development to go in those areas, recognizing that not everybody's going to want to come to Osprey Village, right? So we provide different housing options in the different areas of the municipality. As we go through that process, we'll be reaching out to our neighbors and having them engage with us and discuss with us about, policy, like the housing policy and how it impacts, say, Mahone Bay or Lunenburg or like the district of Chester or even the town of Bridgewater.
Has there been any thought, last question, I'm sorry, there's not that many of us here, so I'll just finish that off. I'm just fascinated. Has there been thought to simply having one committee, amongst all of the organizations, because, water and intensity and all of these issues affect everybody in the same way. And if you got all the resources together in one planning group, would it make for an easier way to implement the logical extension of some of these climate strategies that are so important?
Yeah, that's that's a good question, right? To have everybody come together and maybe work on a regional approach, as opposed to the way it is now. Like we are working on a plan, but our plan is separate than Bridgewater's, separate than Mahone Bay's, right? So right now, no, we don't have a regional committee or working on that at this time. But that's a good,
that could be a
suggestion.
goal.
Yeah.
That could be the actual goal that comes out of the meeting. For God's sakes, let's all work together at, understanding that the county has different sense to it and different economy than does the communities, and we're all in it together, and let's build on our strengths. But anyway, thank you. I've gone on too long, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I think I had Jim next, and then Camelia.
What does wind energy play in this overall plan? And can you imagine the county building a wind farm?
Yep, it plays a major role as well. So the one that he will be exploring in the renewable energy generation category. So although we have picked up community solar garden, but it doesn't necessarily have to be only solar. If if wind farms, if community members are interested in that renewable generation projects, we are happy to assess that as well.
Jim, did that answer your question?
I'll follow up. Can you imagine doing some kind of recognition of solar installations in property valuations to incentivize people to put solar in and improve the intensity of it, adoption of it?
Yeah, that's the idea. Like for one of our action item, which is like clean energy financing program to help residents who are able to put up solar panels on their homes to get benefits out of it. And for that is what one of the program is been running by municipality for almost 5 years now, and we are continuously making efforts to improve those programs to help more and more community members to get these benefits.
Okay, I'm going to send it over to Camelia.
Hi there. A couple things. One is that we've seen recently with Nova Scotia Power's bid to make life very difficult for people who may choose to go green with solar energy, how much we are being held hostage by Nova Scotia Power. And so a couple of notes about that. One is, for now, we've been told that they're not going to go ahead with that plan, but we don't know at what point they may try something similar. And so these kinds of disincentives are something that I'm wondering whether, kind of like the last question, we can find ways to, within our municipality, find ways to incentivize. And I'd also like to say that some of the provincial subsidies that do exist for making the right choices in terms of sustainability as I've found out recently from the very large renovations I've done at Chicory Blue, are not then applicable to businesses. And so pretty much all of the upgrades that I did after getting the environmental assessment have not been able to be helped at all by the program that presently exists. And I wonder if we couldn't possibly think of similarly incentivizing businesses to go green and not only residents. And then I guess the other thing I want, so these are somewhat separate things, but the other thing that I did want to raise is that in that, from my understanding, we're the province with probably the largest amount of privately held land. Whether we don't want to, as a municipality, think about supporting or finding ways to really back the Leahy report and to become, to find a way to actually discourage people from clear cutting on their land when we already know that we really aren't at a place now where we can afford to have more clear cuts.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I would say like municipality is making finding ways and exploring ways continuously to help residents through, for example, like the PACE program, which helps residents to bear those want to reduce our energy consumption in the first place. These energy efficiency retrofits can help us to do that. And this same time, for the commercial side, what we are exploring at this point is for the small businesses to promote efficiency Nova Scotia's programs. The commercial sector is also a bit challenging because although we are finding ways based what our capacity is, but commercial also entails large financial tickets. So there are already programs, let's say provincial programs that can help to what we can promote and create awareness amongst our commercial sites, for example, colleges, schools, industries, factories that can help them to conduct their feasibility. I mean, like their assessment of their properties, energy assessments can be done through grants. So that could be provided. But in the end, when it comes to doing the retrofits, I think we can encourage them and provide incentives in terms of how they can get perhaps more energy efficiency certifications or standards. But if we look from providing financial support, it is a challenging thing, considering from a municipal scale, it would require support from other levels of government, which we will continue to explore. If that answers your question.
Partially.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else with their hands up.
I'm just wondering if anybody wanted to talk to the question about forestry.
Oh, yeah.
Forestry practices.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot, skip that question. So we, in terms of our actions, we are going to launch a tree planting program that can help us to create more forest covers. And in terms of clear cutting, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we already have bylaws around clear cutting. If we don't, I think we could, that would be a good feedback to include those elements in our action items. If we don't already have policies and bylaws around clear cutting, that I will have to double check.
Yeah, we currently don't have bylaws around tree cutting. It would be under the provincial level.
Okay.
Let's go over to George. George,
okay,
are you there?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering around the retrofits and the building codes as to how you determine how much you will ask for in terms of increases in energy efficiency. And my concern there is if you don't do enough on that, the costs of energy are passed on to renters in particular and homeowners, but renters often have huge bills for electricity. And I think the minimal standards would need to be increased quite a bit. And what ability does council have to kind of play around with those bylaws to ask for far more.
Yeah.
Like those are provincial bylaws, is my understanding, or building codes are provincial. Can a single municipal area add to that and ask for more than what the minimal are in the provincial bylaws or provincial building codes?
Yep. So two things. So one for the existing buildings. So with the programs that we are already offering, for example, like clean energy efficiency programs, they offer at 1:1 ratio. So what it means that your energy efficiency would be equal to what you are investing in. So you will be whatever you money that you invest in, you will. So it's like every dollar that you spend, you will be saving every dollar. But there is no as such like minimum efficiency standard that you have to achieve. But when you put it at 1.1, it is typically you save or reduce like much more than you invest in. Like in terms, you save much more than you invest in. And in terms of our building codes, so Canada is in process of launching their 2020 national building codes, which is in already 2 years overdue, but it is expected to come sometime this year or by the next year. So what it does is it has this tier systems for both commercial and residential sectors. So tier system is in the sense tier 1 is like the basic code itself. Tier 2 is like 20% efficient. Tier 3 is like 30% efficient. So what as a municipality we can do, although it will have to be done in discussion with the developers and like thorough engagement, but we can adopt like what efficiency standards do we want to adopt for the future constructions. So be it multi-unit residential buildings or commercial buildings, we can adopt. So once the code is launched, so the province also has set in their act, like as soon as the code will be launched, they will adopt within 18 months. And once that is adopted by the province, so we will, as a municipality, have authorities to adopt a higher minimum energy efficiency standards for if that can help us to achieve higher energy efficiencies in future constructions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to send it over. Oh, I thought I had someone who hadn't spoken yet, but maybe Robert, did you still want to ask a question? Or Trevor, sorry, I think it was Trevor had his hands up.
Yeah, I guess I can. I to some extent my question was addressed, but I'm just going back to the slide presentation that you made, Abby. You noted that residential accounted for about 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, that's a pretty significant portion. I'm just curious. I mean, the home retrofit program, obviously that needs to happen in order to address those. But a lot of the houses are 100, 200 years old in the area, and they're going to require substantial retrofitting to come anywhere close to achieving any kind of goals in reducing that 50% category. A lot of people probably don't have the capital resources to put into a home. And obviously there's got to be some investment coming from somewhere to make that happen. I'm just curious, is there a financial plan that's being considered that would help make that happen? Because obviously you've got thousands and thousands of homes. It's going to be difficult for any level of government to support that level of upgrade. So, and having said that, the homeowners over time will experience significant amount of reduction in their heating and utility costs. But there's one small problem is that a lot of people who may be using wood to heat their homes may not experience those savings to the same extent as people using electricity and oil. So you need to still incentivize those folks who are using wood as a heating source. So anyways, a whole bunch of things together that sort of connect, but I'm just curious whether there's been any consideration on the financial of how that can happen.
Yeah, Thank you, Tara, for that comments. Yeah, it is a challenging issue to because it is definitely a big capital investment, and municipality is exploring those options. So, for example, exploring ways how we could increase our maximum eligibility amount that can help the community members for older homes, or perhaps that requires bigger capital to do deeper energy retrofits. So that is one option that we are exploring in terms of getting revenues. That is also in radar to explore how and what support we can get from other levels of government in terms of capital expenditure. But yes, it is still it is in consideration.
Has there been any consideration in terms of looking at the property tax? I know here in Brampton, there's been some consideration of using the property tax system, where essentially homeowners you would add a levy to the property tax, so the homeowner would be granted capital funding up front to do some of those deep retrofits and investments in the property, and then that gets paid off over time as an addition to the property tax. So effectively, the municipality is operating as a bit of a go between in the maybe that's not the right term, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I think so. That is actually the similar way how the clean energy financing program works. So the finance that we provide the community members, it is attached to their properties and not to their personal credit. And then they can, in addition to their regular property tax, in a similar fashion, they can just pay off that finance in monthly payments over a period of, which is 10 years for now. But we are also looking to how we can extend that financing term so they will have longer payback periods, which will make their monthly payments smaller.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. George, do you have a question?
Not at this time, no.
No, okay. And Michael, I still have your hand up. How about you?
I just had a question for the mayor. A couple of years ago, Annapolis County set some very specific goals for growing a certain percentage of their food and for developing a certain percentage of their energy. And it strikes me that when you're doing these kinds of plans, they have to be very specific. How many of this and how many of that are we going to achieve? Because it's one thing to advertise to try to get people to be smarter about energy, but it's another to say we will arrive at a certain level at a certain point. So I'm wondering if the mayor would consider setting or advocating at least for specific targets for growing our own food in Lunenburg County and for creating our own energy.
Yeah, before Mayor jumps in, I just want to add quick comments that, yeah, so that is what the intention is. Once our engagement concludes, we will be setting individual targets for those respective actions, and in consideration of not only the feedback that we are getting from the engagement, but also hoping that our targets are in alignment with our province and federal. For example, provincial government has set target to produce minimum 20% of local, I think it is 20 or maybe 30, to have it from a local, to have 30% of local food production by 2030. So we will take all those factors into consideration, and we will definitely have, so when the draft plan is in place, before it is presented to the council, it will have those specific targets that what we intend to achieve, like a certain percentage, if that helps. Probably Mayor Poliver can.
Thank you, Michael. And yes, that's the whole intention of going through these consultation processes, and the engagement is to put everything out on the table. But yes, we want deliverables and we want to accomplish. This isn't just mouthing words. We're really serious about doing what we're doing here.
Well, Mayor, I was very impressed with how you handled the Lehigh River question, and it's having lived there for so long, I was thrilled with what transpired. But it was great to see that county really get focused on solving their own problems by saying, all right, we're going to grow. Nova Scotia used to supply 70% of its food.
Absolutely.
And so maybe that should be a target in the next 20 years. But anyway, thanks very much.
So even, I guess I'll just comment again there with the mandatory planning that will be coming in across the municipality. And one of the provincial statements of interest has to do with agricultural lands as well. So that's definitely something we will be looking at when we go through our planning stages.
Good. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. Anyone else have a question? You feel free to speak freely. We got a little over time, but not by much. Okay. Well, I've dropped a link in the chat for both the Engage website as well as Abby's email if you want to reach out to him individually. Again, we will be posting this video up on our website so that if you have anyone who would like to see it or you want to share it with friends, please do. The more people we get involved, the more impact we're going to have with this plan. Thank you, Abby. Mayor Carolyn Bolivar-Getson, would you like to say any words before we head out for the night?
I guess I would just like to thank everyone for taking the time to, again, join us here this evening. Your input is always welcome, and hopefully we'll be having a few more of these things as we move forward and set the targets and put things in place. So please get engaged. If you have the opportunity to sit on a committee, please do that.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Yeah, everyone.